Black metal theory symposium. Just a few words to say thank to Radio Študent, študentsko filozofsko društvo, Škratova čitalnica and of course Moderna galerija, kjer they all help us to organize this today event. On your chairs are these nice fanzines with the program, and we will start with the first panel with Simon Smole paper Walter Benjamin's Satanic Smile, and then Marko Rusjan's paper The Passage into the Unknown, Emancipatory Potentials of Black Metal. Unfortunately, Georgios Karakis is not here with us. He got a job, serious stuff to do. So, Simon and Marko, you can talk a little longer or do, I don't know, but you will do. So, Simon.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. Also warm welcome in my name. As Robert says, my name is Simon Smole, and my lecture paper will be, I'm not sure it's even about black metal theory, we'll see. I guess this is the most anti-metal title of the paper you can imagine. Walter Benjamin and black metal, but my paper is not trying to forcefully engage Walter Benjamin and black metal. Actually, my presentation will argue that the connection is not impossible, but maybe unwanted. By that I mean my goal is to present in broad strokes how in writings of some authors that are not known as black metal theorists, we can find traces of what we can provisionally call blackened thoughts. Some of you that you read text essays on black metal theory, you know what I'm talking about. Some of the formulations I will explain, I will just leave because I'm sure that most of you know what I'm talking about. Actually, my paper is introduction to this conference, and it will take the form of the introduction, so it will not be too long or too precise. So my paper will not strive or pretend to always be within this realm of black metal. I will not be using black metal theory terminology extensively, concepts, and like make exegesis of metal songs, imagery, and so on. I will not indulge in theory of metal as some revolutionary political praxis or something like that. So my paper will be to some degree infamously obscure. It will definitely not be proposing some conclusive theory or ready-to-use black metal concepts. Rather, it will demonstrate with all the difficulties how to connect some line of thought to black metal. By that I mean to find blackened thought in writings of some well-known authors and thinkers like Walter and Benjamin. Don't panic. Metal studies, or black metal theory, critics are focusing mostly on lack of theoretical as well as methodological coherence, and they're accusing black metal as being unscientific and theory that lacks methodology. It seems that dealing with writings of black metal theory will fall in a trap of unending meta-explanations. And if you are familiar with commentary by Nagarastani and Maschiandaro, you will understand what I'm talking about. But maybe the right way is to affirm this practice as one of the theoretical goals or aims or of black metal. So and we can provisionally define this commentary as form of creative intellectual work with particular mode of production and forum for dialogue. Maybe the right approach is to renounce in advance any pretension to form some kind of theory in sync with academic standards. And this is explicitly in some text of black metal theory, it's almost programmatic. They renounce any pretension to be in sync with academic theory. So we can go as far as openly admit our aim is to obfuscate academic discourse, non-concept, reverse or destabilize established meaning at what means to have or possess knowledge, to produce it and establish it as a system of truths. Especially the notion of science as ultimate form of rational thought. With the Enlightenment, scientific reason became the privileged way of accessing the truth. According to this view, for knowledge to acquire the value as truth, it had to constantly strive to become scientific, to construct and organize concept according to certain rigorous criteria of scientificity. Black metal knowledge is not inherently superior or more true than these scientific forms of knowledge. Rather, it deepens and expands in a way that is, at least for me, hard to grasp and is causing continuous problematization of black metal theory. So, this commentary that I mentioned, one of the main concept in it is this constant problematization of black metal theory as theory. So, as one of the paper on this conference, one of the abstracts puts it, black metal is not seeking solution, but path to unknown. And he talks, and he just mentions Lovecraft. And I think his stories are a proper metaphor for black metal theory. His characters are often scientists and explorers, live in the cave of science, knowledge, ignorant of unknown around them, but find out about their lack of knowledge or the whole plethora of unknown laws that even define physics throughout the story. They rise from the cave but never adjust to the darkness of unknown hidden knowledge, which in some cases is pure negation of the known, universal dogmas. Blinded by their actual, insignificant existence in the sight of revelatory horror from the black light, they eventually crumble. So this is a good illustration what is like to be a black metal theorist. Few authors explicitly approached black metal as potentially coherent conceptual field with structures underlying the production of scientific knowledge. So maybe the main question about black metal theory should be, what are the conditions for theory in a given time and place of formation of the field? I don't know, maybe it's not even a plausible question. Maybe black metal theory is just a fiction, in meaning that Michel Foucault invests in this term when he writes, he sometimes explains that he does not mean that what he is saying is not true. Rather, that his writing are constructing the stories about the real, not transparent representation of what is really out there. I already mentioned Nicola Maschiandaro. He attempts to parallel black metal with theory of negativity and states that black metal, or rather its followers, intentionally refuse to engage with established philosophical discourses, which is not bad at all, and self-reflection, though evading building theory as essential ontology of black metal. Like there is always an urge underneath to explain some basic principles on which black metal theory is founded. Maybe he says, in fear of realizing themselves having a cave dweller's fantasy. So having black metal conferences and published articles is in itself very ambiguous, heterogenic, and multidirectional way of thinking and making theory, with expected unconclusive aporetic writings. So charm of black metal theory is his theoretical and even semantic evasiveness. interrelation of a complex and multi-layered range of elements. What is even more disturbing is deployment of this mega concept called annihilation as vehicle of destruction of everything that binds. Maybe there is no hope or need or desire for academic illumination of black metal, and that is totally fine. So I will cite some of the authors, and there, from the citations you will see, they also have problems. And again, this is maybe the same in other theory or in philosophies and so on. So Neil Scott says, black metal theory serves to increase and expand more and more on that which have been forbidden. Juliet Forshaw, in her discussion on metal studies, admits that it is a different kind of scholarship that indulges in a level of obscurantism that is only possible among members of a tiny occult sect who are unconcerned with courting of a broader audience. And another Benjamin Noyes poses interesting question: can black metal be understood separately from its lyrics? So I will just demonstrate with one method, and I will present it in a more simplistic way. Okay, I'll just lay it out, and I will comment on it later. Example of this demonstration of the method of black metal theory. We can put it like that. Ad Majorem Satanas Gloriam is the album, as you all know, the title of the album of probably the most known black metal group, Mayhem. A Latin term meaning for the greater glory of Satan, and was conceived by Infernus, inspired by his reading, attention, an article about Counter-Reformation, the Society of Jesus in Ignatius de Loyola. So I will just read one passage from the song. He who sits in the dark is the bringer of the light. This beauty, the sign of an open eye, call him to black flight, to black flame, call him bringer of the light, call him to black flame, call him, call him, call him. Black metal theory is essentially this core full of black light, flame that burns everything. But my intention here is that with these lyrics, I can demonstrate how hermeneutic method works. We extract concepts from black metal lyrics. In this example, black flame can be used like metaphor for negativity. It's not about lux in tenebris, the famous Bible. It's about the dark light in black metal. And I will now try to demonstrate into this method a little bit further. So in Gospel of John from the Bible, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. 5th verse of chapter 1. So he have this illumination of the darkness of something that is unknown, not yet visible, and so on. But black metal, and this is the twist of a black metal, it's not about enlightening of the dark. Black metal means or strives to make light flame itself black. Sorry for these encryptic words and metaphors. So maybe Althusser will call black metal theory a descriptive theory. I don't know. And the question is, can black metal theory really be theoretical forefront or resurrection of some concepts or philosophies? So my aim of paper is not to defend or go through another path of darkness and follow this abyss of all that is offered with every new article of black metal theory. Instead, I will take another path, or to use a better word, journey. And at this point, it's maybe time for the title of my paper, Benjamin Satanic Smile, or maybe it's not. Surprisingly, I'm trying to find thinking tools for black matter theory in writings that are totally outside of black metal and everything that is associated with black metal. And it's Walter Benjamin's. In order to enrich modes of production or to alter them. By that I mean modes of production of black metal theory. I already mentioned the so-called glossator and commentaries. And these are in some way already examples of these alter modes of creating new forms of knowledge. These are, for you who don't know, essentially some of the authors of black metal theory go through the articles and essays and try to form some kind of ever-changing RKHV forum where some provisional concepts of black metal are defined, and they are most of the time published together with the essays or separate. So I think this is a good approach, but so these new forms of knowledge that I'm trying to these modes of production, I will define this knowledge in just nominal definition. Historically and culturally specific set of rules for organizing and producing different forms of knowledge. So this is the nominal definition we can work with. It's not a matter of external determinations being imposed on people's thoughts. Rather, it's a matter of rules which, a bit like the grammar of a language, allow certain statements to be made. It sounds structuralistic to me, but okay. How does black metal theory fits in this provisional definition? We have to ask ourselves not what is theory, or what is black in theory, or what is black metal theory, but how to understand history, historical conscience, historical formation, and how is historical knowledge reproduced. And if we go a step further, what is blackened historical conscience? Again, I'm using blackened in the way that I hopefully you can extract from the metaphors and illustrations I put out. So the question is, what is the blackened historical conscious? Not what is the blackened thought, what is the blackened theory, but what is then how we think about history, about time, how we form knowledge, and how are these concepts perceived in this historical context. So at this point, I hope that Walter Benjamin finally enters with his satanic smile. If black metal speaks in language of recomposed lyrical fragments, musical analysis of black metal, fantasy world of demonic creatures, obscure discourses and hidden knowledge, so black metal theory is hermetic, subterranean, and we can say blackened thought unfolds in arcane and unclosed conditions. But it's, like I said in the beginning, it's always the tendency to excavate these buried pieces. It's what drives commentary and the theory of black metal, making it an endless chain of meta-explanations, explanations by complications. And this is not a bad thing in itself. It's funny how metal, being sort of culture of exclusivism, choosing Satan's children and so on, we'll have to, when you talk about black metal, so we are forced to include bias in its foundation. Commentaries are, as I said, I'm repeating, commentaries are separated from the other writings. They create some kind of forum where these writings of black metal are discussed. So black metal theory is, in a sense, a discourse that is always in motion, deconstructing and reconstructed. And this is one of the, also of the remarks about black metal that is closed to different intellectual traditions, I don't know, post-structuralism, so on. Okay, so it's hopelessly try, I don't know if that's true, hopelessly try and fail to form some kind of coherent theoretical ground. Black metal theory is swarming with commentaries in different perspectives, from cultural studies to Kabbalah. We have this nexus of erudition and esoteric knowledge, which is in itself, in the definition, something we can only approach indirectly. So black metal theory opens itself at totally different levels and is amassing so many heterogeneous layers to this black metal theory. So it's not surprising that some of the commentaries are like alchemic manuscripts, making itself understandable as I said, via indirect, sometimes metaphorical terminology, which is forming and dissolving with every new article. So how to avoid forming some kind of central archive or parnasse of great masters of black metal thought, if that's even the goal. And more important, where to find already existing concepts, tools to produce commentaries in this anti-instrumental way and pure down this black thought in some fractal manner. So I think this is maybe the time for Benjamin to enter. Surprisingly, I propose Benjamin is someone who is, at least in his embryonic form of thought, creating fleeting spaces of non-established, antagonistic, and seemingly unrelated correlations, of juxtapositing of heterogenic elements in his writings. So black matter theory, by definition, is considered as a project of how arcane, hidden, unexplainable is brought to some kind of presence. Black metal, but of course, the counter-argument here, we can't never brought this hidden knowledge to presence, and the point is reverse, so that everything that is affirmative falls in this big void of nothing. But that's for the other speakers. Black matter unavoidably seeks tool that we enable this to happen. So I think making sense of what is writing about. You can't just write a paper and says everything is hidden, here is big nothingness, and everything will fall in it. So it's like some unstoppable urge to brought this in some understandable form. So, as you know, as I already mentioned, even though black metal theory has some provisional concept, production of it is always faced with the mega concept of annihilation, negation, and doing of something seemingly already here in front of us, evident, known, we can grab it, historically established and so on. We can say theory clings some black metal as constant praxis. And if so, is written word then only residue of series of events defined simply by something with the beginning and the end, like this conference. I don't mean end by falling to big nothing. So is there a method, or are we seeking this method that translates all this into some archive of established concepts of relations between all these writings about black metal theory? So you were wondering why all this long introduction and where is Benjamin already? So how to create some virtual space for black metal artists and thinkers, and at the same time cut together different object, music performances, subcultures, conferences, screenings, performances, such that meaning arises through channels and ways not hierarchical, not already rooted in some intellectual tradition. And this goes for all the approaches to black metal, from cultural studies to sociology and so on. So if you have all these diverse approaches, how can you call it a black metal theory? You can call it black metal theory, but you will pose many problems will arise. So, for example, black metal can be some invisible hand that cuts into black music and imagery. So, this is again something. Black metal theory is something that appropriates symbolically music and imagery. This is one way, and it's totally cool. So to produce a new meaning, not in a sense of appropriation music with established theoretical apparatus, but a new way of historical thinking, of ways of making some archival thought which is inherently unstable and self-annihilating. I will explain later why this is something that always pops up in talking about black metal theory. This negativity, and it's in the title of the conference. So it's time for the big guns, but not Benjamin yet. So this is a citation. Philosophical theory is itself a practice, just as much as its object. It's not more abstract than its object. It's a practice of concept. It must be judged in the light of the other practices with which it interferes. This is Deleuze. I will not paraphrase Deleuze and ask myself, or you, maybe you should answer. What is black metal theory? But I will rather propose, according with my title, I will ask the Benjamin's question, and that is, what is history? So, here we go, Walter Benjamin. Benjamin outlines a critique of idea of history as phantasmagoria. For the 19th century historian, the course of the world is an endless series of facts congealed in a form of things resulting in the history of civilization. Some omnipotent archive which makes an inventory point by point of humanity's lives, forms, and creations. He described this view of history as timeless errarium. Benjamin downplays this process of production by which these treasures are created, transferred, and maintained. As many of you know, instead of founding concept of history as progression, he proposes and he talks about actualization. So let's be a little provocative and reduce maybe the complexity of this. And ask ourselves, what is the history of black metal? Is this even a right question? And if something like this even exists, do we need it? Is the history already, is history something that has to be annihilated? To use it again. In the field of black metal studies, knowledge concept terms appear only in lightning flashes, I already mentioned, and are mostly formed in a way of negation. Black matter theory is not about accumulating concepts and established paradigmas. It's more like some kind of hermeneutic circle. Okay, and if that's the case, what would alternative way of history bring to this endless processing machine called black metal theory? And what is blackened history conscious? Or something like that, anyway. Should we propose a new concept of time and ways of creation of historical known and knower? How will this resurrection of production of history endure a test of this occult authenticity and so on? How to even deal with the Lovecraft's hidden realities that I mentioned? So I will evoke this famous figure of Walter Benjamin called Agiselau Santander, inspired by Paul Klee's painting Angelus Novus. Is just a big angel facing the viewer with a claws, but it's just like regular angel. This angel was mentioned in a Benjamin text on the concept of history. And Maskendaro in his text says that this angel ideal is a book that would eliminate all the commentary. And this book will consist only of citations. So this would be some kind of all-encompassing metaphysical book of universe. And this is a black metal theory, wet dreams, some kind of diabolic art total. This shocking citational discourse of living tradition, to quote Agamben's text, Walter Benjamin and Demonic, does not aim to perpetuate and repeat the past, but to lead it to its decline in a context in which past and present content of transmission and act of transmission, what is unique and what is repeatable, are wholly identified. Another, already mentioned, Benjamin Noyes talks about paradoxical wish that lies as a premise underneath every urge to archive, to collect things, to save. He says, this citation, an archive that in a vertiginous movement of self-abolition threatens to coincide entirely with its own destruction. So in black metal, we have these two impulses. They're of the same power, the destructive impulse and impulse to save in some way. And we will try to find a way how are we gonna try to preserve or how to sort these different approaches and different theories, different concepts of black metal. So let's activate another Benjamin stinking tool, and it's montage. No, maybe it's too Frenchy. Montage. It's a known Benjamin's tool, and it's actually Benjamin uses it in a time where there was actually where cinema and image were starting to move. So from this passage from photography to movies. So this montager it's a vehicle to form and dismantle different constellations. And at first it was applied only to movies. But it challenges the already mentioned, I will call it a twin problem on transmissibility of truth and act of transmissibility I mentioned in Agamben's citation. So black metal, by activating these tools, creates a chain of being that is not known yet. Ontology which is in a special way challenging us to conceptually grasp it. It's nameless, but we are still urgent to somehow talk about it, to put it in some narration, to symbolically apprehend it. So basically to name it, to produce knowledge about it. As I said, this is not only about optical unconscious, and Benjamin uses this term in different contexts. I will try to upgrade a bit, and I will say that these tools that I'm proposing, Benjamin's tools, will disrupt or even refuse the concept of some timeless truth, of established and sacralized order of things, some particular historical regimes of truth. And I mean, definition of these regimes of truth is as the historically specific mechanisms which produce discourses which functions through in particular times and places. This is, of course, Foucault's definition. So, a little intermezzo, and we'll return to Benjamin. Guy Debord claims in Society of Spectacle that historical, irreversible, as opposed to cyclical time did not exist prior to invention of history itself. So some historical chronicles meant to reproduce power. It follows that lived time and a non-linear history that can address it work in opposition to irreversible historical time, and therefore against the society that produces, owns, and immobilizes it. This is also true for reproducing historical knowledge. So the Walter Benjamin concept of time and history will help us go beyond teleological thinking and undo history, as Ernest Renan, famous French historian, defined it as history is what actually happened. So black and historical mission or journey, as I said, is to explode this continuum of history and not giving ourselves away to the horror of once upon a time, as Benjamin formulates it. This is maybe a different approach to critique of the modern world, which is a common theme in black metal theory. So black metal theory is not striving actually to antagonize this great synthesis of conglomerate of world knowledge. Neither is its goal to enter through the door of global academic community. And maybe this is the point we should consider. I don't know if this is completely true for black metal theory to be totally obscure and not trying to integrate black metal theory as some specific field already existing in established academic system. To in some way institutionalized it. That's definitely the opportunistic thing to do, and not a surprise either. So this will maybe have some not just material but also theoretical effects, causing further alienation of theory from black metal itself, and also influence the forum and the content of black metal theory. On the other hand, it will definitely increase finances and academic opportunities for the black metal theorists. I'm just laying it out. So, to go back to Benjamin, I'll just present two of his concepts that he found in Jewish tradition. And it's just a food for thought, but it applies to the already mentioned citation from Agamben and the things I was talking about previously. So the first one is the halacha, which designates a law in itself. So this is a truth insofar as it is isolated from all the narration. This is, you can connect this to my previous urge I was talking about to grasp, symbolically grasp black metal. So, but this is the truth insofar as these are the more mystic categories, isolated from the old narration. And the agada is the second concept, that is its truth just in its transmissibility. So, and we are again faced with the difference between truth and truth as just act of his transmissibility. How is truth laid out? And this is definitely important for black metal theory. So for Benjamin, in his essay on Kafka, these two played off against each other and abolished one another. So it's not like we have truth lying there and we just have to find a way to make it understandable. It's not that simple. So I will not go into details, but this is maybe two categories that can work in black metal theory. So again, it's not about just annihilation of the past. To say we can't just say, okay, everything is it's more about cutting in historical conscience. On one hand, is the formal conscience that understands all human work and the past as some origin destined to infinite process of transmission. So that preserves this intangible and mythic singularity of something. And on the other hand, there is a form of consciousness that is inverted specular image of the first form of consciousness. Irresponsibly liquidates and flattens singularity of origin by forever multiplying copies in simulacra. This is another problem of repeatability of black metal theory. So let's return to this principle of montage that governs the form of the whole. This means not only that a single definitive authorial perspective must be removed and definitely questioned all the time, so that we don't have this big papas of black metal theory that will always control what are we talking about. The author is a category or a wave of organizing text which has a history and needs to be challenged. And this goes for the black metal theorists also. But also the way fragment constellation is formed must remain open to further readings, rereadings, and even rearranging of elements. This is nothing new for black metal theory. So critique of the black metal doesn't include just commentary of particular texts, but also introduction of new way of arranging concepts. Montage serves here as a thinking tool which doesn't discriminate between different representations of black metal. Speaking of one of the many problems that arise with the Benjamin's tools that I'm discussing, okay, is the critique of Adorno of Benjamin. He feared that by evacuation of subjectivity of this master interpreter, Benjamin had inadvertently presented a view of the world as mere uninterpreted facts, analyzable events which the reader would have no reason to connect through any theory at all. Again, seems familiar. It seems safer to put black metal theory under the umbrella of already existing theoretical and methodological paradigms. So, I have just 10 pages more, no? So I will finish fast, sorry. Truth is not a merely contingent function of knowing, but is bound to a nucleus of time lying hidden within the knower and the known alike. So, again, question, how is, not just how is knowledge formed, but how is the great theoreticians of black metal also. So, collision of this hidden time, undercurrent of history with this blackened thought, which is, I said earlier, biased. This is also elitistic and doesn't conform to established rules of forming knowledge. And the ways of the truth is disseminated and rules of academic discourse so in this strange way, Benjamin's angel of history becomes in some way demonic, chaotic, and uncontrollable in the way that black metal theory writes. It moves from exterior into interior and vice versa. Blackened history that places great value on discontinuity and decontextualization is the main point of this method. And the aim of it is to denaturalize particular features in view and to prevent their being reinserted into this conventional, uncritical academic discourse sometimes. So this will, okay, I will try to short it. Bring us back to Foucault's continual use of principle of discontinuity, break, and difference in his analysis in order to undermine philosophical notions of this unchanging essence in history. So this is basically the anti-humanistic approach that I'm laying here in front of you. So this discontinuity that we find in Benjamin and Foucault challenges the notions of cause, effect, progress, destiny, tradition, and influences in this that I'm calling blackened historical conscience. So Benjamin uses constellation force fields as a metaphor of his methods. These are ways of thinking beyond the level of just juxtaposition, which always sounds like directed at the edge of transition between two things. These are metaphors for a configuration of fragments or a relation among several fragments in which a sudden clarification and new graphs of the import of fragments can occur. There is a perspectival thread here as well, as Benjamin comes close to saying that readers from different times and different angles of view may see different constellations, different meanings, which is to say that he does not intend a single best reading of some project that would get it all. I'm hovering all the time around this famous critique of black metal that I mentioned in the introduction. That is a constant fear of destroying dialectical thinking, accusations that black metal theory is auto-destructive, acephalic, nihilistic, some kind of final nihilism, once and for all nihilism, pure negativity, or the argument that black metal theory is theory-obsessed appropriation of music, which definitely has other potentialities. And as Calder Williams writes, there is no coherence to this turn in political aesthetics of black metal. We find interesting ideas in black metal, but we can say that the problem is theoretical, subtly, and concrete analysis of these ideas. On the one hand, is the theory without consideration for black metal music and subculture, or on the other hand, is too much focus on black metal without theoretical concerns. We have, as already mentioned, commentary, glossatory, but one of the main concepts is, again, paradoxically, constant problematization of black metal. And maybe black metal is close to deconstructive philosophy, post-structuralism, as mentioned. And of course, there is always a common sense argument. Music can and should be listened in cynically called pre-critical manner. So, I will finish. In my paper, I argue that Benjamin concept help us bring diverse forces of black metal together and opens debate about main points of academic discourse and how knowledge, truth, subject, history can be blackened. Black metal theory will always be scrutinized as theory, but it's not just that. It's a field with diverse elements, and sometimes they're not conceptualized in a way theoretical systems usually are. There is no systemic approach to black metal theory. Instead, the essay texts offer a discussion of range of aspects that black metal is concerned or associated with. So I will finish with one citation that argues that discourses does not underlie all cultural forms, and the forms such as art and music are not discursive. So there is nothing to be gained from describing this autonomous layer of discourse unless one can relate to the other layers, other practices, other institutions, social relations, and so on. It is that relationship which has always intrigued me. So how to think together various forms of expression surrounding the black metal subject. My paper is just a hint where to look for help. So this is essentially what I had to say, and it's just an introduction to open some problems and questions about black metal theory. Thank you.
Okay. Hi. My name is Marko Rusjan. I will present my contribution that is called The Passage into the Unknown, Emancipatory Potentials of Black Metal. As I wrote down all the contributions, I saw that I made some mistake in subtitle. Maybe I should just put non-emancipatory potentials of black metal. So this is, we don't know what the results are. I excuse my Slavic English, but I think it sounds more evil anyway. I prepared this like 20 minutes, like some good black metal song, or some good hardcore album. So it's, I will not try to be too long and try to just, because everything that I will say today is pure speculation. I will start with some personal story. Yesterday I was texting, I don't know it's properly grammar, but okay. I was just text something to my black metal fan, friend or musician, and I said if he could come here today and to black metal theory symposium, and he just said black metal theory is an oxymoron. And he was joking, but I think he wanted to say that it's just music. No? It's, that we don't have to exaggerate, but I think that is the same with every musical subgenre. It's always there are some symposiums on punk music or alternative music or whatever. There is always this question if this is really matters. This is really what some music scene or something really wants, and because I think the essence is always the music, and also that's why we're not talking about black metal theory, but more about black metal, and there are some music albums that really struck me when I heard the first chords of some. That was like I started with Anarchy in the UK from Sex Pistols. There was the I just heard one riff and that was enough. I said, that's it. Huh? And the same happened the early 90s with my black metal friends. I borrowed from them a Burzum album. And when I heard the start of a Burzum song, and just dun, 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 it was just, that's it. That is the sound that I want to hear and also to reproduce in other ways. And I think that's like introduction. I think that first music strikes you, and then you start to think what's behind it. And so let's get to the real stuff. And as I will start with part of my introduction, which is also in the fanzine. That's also it was mentioned before that black metal needs not to seek some solutions or to find some answers to the great questions of eternity or something, but it's seeking for release of the soul and body. That means that the anxious state we are living is pushing us to the unknown. Black metal is maybe the one means or way to find the passage to this unknown. So some dark, unique territories which has not yet been dominated or colonized by a rationalist, positivist, I'd say capitalist machine or theory. That's not only the West Passages territories that we all know from the Norwegian black metal albums, covers of Arctic, Eternal Winter, but also the hidden worlds that humans don't have the contacts with them. And this is what he was already mentioned before from my predecessor. Okay, about the worlds that H.P. Lovecraft describes in his novels, and when he tries to he doesn't try to describe to us the words that we don't know. He just warns us that there are some words that are totally different from what we know and what we experience. But this thing, this difference, that we cannot, this thing that we cannot imagine, it's even more attractive for us, and we are pushed into that goal. So, black metal is, for me, at least I will be speaking from my point of view, because it will be really pretentious to speak what black metal thinks, or what that black metal is a rejection of the known world. This could be temporary or permanently. There is a disaffection with highly technological world in which technologies more and more regulate our life processes, our essential biological behavior. For example, we have applications on our phones and other devices that measure every pulse that our hearts automatically produce. We are totally measured in any ways. That's the logic that we have to have control of everything. I think that long gone are the hopes of the Enlightenment, that the knowledge would be the light that will show us brighter future and emancipation for all human beings. We saw that this kind of light can also produce total societies with concentration camps, or at least prison-like institutions where everything is enlightened, open to eyes of everybody. We got total transparency, which is just another name for total control. So, what we got with black metal is rebellion against rationality, against modern world. That is nothing new. there were already before reactions against modern world, starting from German Romanticism through bitter Nietzschean critique of plebeian-like modern world to the bourgeois New Age philosophy and post-colonial discourses that denounce Eurocentric views of the world. Black metal has at least two answers or directions in this case. One that is often present in black metal bands is looking for old, forgotten mythological places that were buried under the terror of Enlightenment or Industrial Revolution. Obsession with Nordic mythology, Viking past, and the age of warriors or paganism. The other approach that I prefer is to push things further, to cut every ties with the present and the past, to seek for other worlds. That's some kind of avant-garde, let's say. It negates any concerns with heritage, pagan past, nationality, and other vulgarisms of black metal. It's much more universal. Even Satanism has universal goals to help individuals taking the right approach in the world we live in. For example, I will cite something describing some of you may know, a French black metal band, Blue House North, which for me is one of the best in this genre. It's like the sound, black metal is like the sound of the universe, far from this kind of earthly petty concerns. It could be the sound of other worlds, not just ours. And then now we will come into to see what these words, where these words are, what these words could be. Eugen Tecker, his work In the Dust of This Planet, defines three categories of world. One is world for us. This is the world that we experience, the world that is the anthropocentric world, the world that we live in, and we can experience and we can imagine. Then it's the world in itself, that is a world that doesn't necessarily include humans. It could be just, it will exist even after the humanity will perish or gone, or it exists before. And then it's the world without us, the world where humans never were. It's like, for example, from Lovecraftian mythology, it's a world of elders, of the races that were before human race come to this earth and dominate it. These are the planets that exist on their own. So when we speak about different worlds, we don't have in mind worlds of bodies and worlds of souls. I think that we should make this clear, that this is strictly materialistic, materialistic concept what we are looking at. Or words can be material in form. Even monsters are real, they're not some images. Hidden creatures from the dark are real, as capitalists are real. They are not the one that you can only observe, some kind of ghostly projections. They are real bodies and they can hurt you or give you pleasure. So, if we accept as we accept the limitedness of the world for us, and we think I think black metal is okay, this is, I made a complicate I suppose that black metal also is looking for other worlds, for worlds that are now without humans. This is some kind of anthropocentric view on these worlds, because we expect that we will come there and be part of that world. I'm not sure if the position of black metal music or theory or scene is to explore new worlds and maybe even colonize them like some imperialistic black metal West India company. I think that we are looking for passages or portals through which we'll be pushed into another world, which at the moment we cannot comprehend and maybe we'll never will. Then now I will read some passages from the Lovecraft story, The Call of Cthulhu, which describes this kind of The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity. And it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each training in its own direction, have harmed us little. But someday, the piecing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. What Lovecraft meant by this passage is that when we will have the total knowledge, we will be more scared than we are now, because we will find things that we don't know about them yet. So I was focusing on this kind, how to enter this world different, like some passages or portals where we can, with which we can enter this. I'm totally serious anyway about these words. Okay, like in black metal, you have lots of imagery and about high mountains, about mountaineering, where you have to climb the highest mountains and to reach that goal. But for some, there is just that going to the peak of the mountain is the most important. But for me, it's more important to cross these mountains, and so this passage, to see what is on the other side of mountain. Mountains could be like an allegory for to find this to the other worlds, some passage to other worlds. The other kind of portal could be the darkness. No, that's darkness is the natural state of the universe. I read that in the universe, dark matter consists 27% of all space, and only 5% is light matter, planets, stars. The dark is the natural, natural state in this our universe. And it's in the darkness that we have to find answer, but more importantly, not only answer, but our release. We also saw just some week ago first photograph of shadow of a black hole. Not of black hole, but something that, because it's impossible to take picture, but of the shadow that this black hole is causing. Also, black hole is imagined to be a portal to some other worlds. But for the opening the doors to other worlds, humans invented rituals. That can be masses, for example, black mass as the antonymy of Christian liturgy. Also, black metal concerts can be some kind of ritual. But as Agamben put it, the mystery of liturgy is mystery of effectiveness. Not every concert will help us. We need a proper black metal liturgy. So we have to think about how to organize proper concert, proper ritual. And one kind of tools that black metal use is like it's reductionism. Reductionism of, especially musically speaking. Reduction of sound, reduction of shape visually, and reduction of expression. Whole concept of black metal. Also, this part of this ritual, and that's something that has to be in part of it, is subjectiveless. No, it's the proper word in English, but I invent it now. It's also very important in black metal performance. There's no subjectivity is not really important. Now, and I will also give some other words from Windswall from Bluetooth Nord Band. But we have always considered that our art was the only important thing. We are not rock stars and we are not important in the process. Bluetooth Nord is a faceless entity, dehumanized and without ego. Personally, I'm just a vector between the inspiration and the final result. So this subjectiveness is, I think it's also important in these rituals too. I have some other personal story, but this is intermezzo. I think just that we are not so serious. I was taking a bath a few days ago, and children in school and they produce their own how it's called, soap for wets, and it was and then I use it. Okay, someone has to consume this, and I put it in the tube, and then it was red. It was like blood. And it was just the whole. It was like taking a lady battery bath, you know? And it was just. I think it was just amazing. I'm not too fascinated with this kind of allegories, but I think it could produce some kind of mystic experience, or maybe to find some another portals. If we are taking all this blood baths, and so just for the idea, if you want. So what can we expect from these rituals? Do we really wish to be successful? That's an important question that Lovecraft before mentioned it. Maybe it's better that everything is just a childish game with no real results. In that case, we will know that we are safe in our world with all its pluses and minuses. But what if we are successful? If we enter into another world of unknown, in some kind of mist of real freedom from this world, what horror awaits us on the other side? Can we bear the truth? I think we should try. If we had the chance to enter the other world, we can call them world of ghosts, demons, unimagined beings. We just have to enter it. We are on the frontier of the known world. Frontiers were always a symbol of freedom. If you are on the other side of the frontier, there is no state that can have a jurisdiction over what you do or you don't. As there were utopian colonies in the 19th centuries in the western territories of the USA. Humans are always looking for other worlds. And now I'm entering into my final. As I promised, I will be effective. Maybe it would sound like my speculation. It was really like a fantasy world. We're just talking about something that doesn't exist and everything. But it's important that we try to imagine that there are some other worlds outside of this world. And maybe they're better or maybe they are worse. But we know that in this world we are never satisfied. And that's why we are looking for other worlds. Because black metal is not about escapism or something. It's about looking out, to laugh at the terrific things that await us in the dark. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marko and Simon. Questions, comments, screaming, singing, whatever. Okay, silence is good, and since we are a little late, we will stop right now and continue in about 15-20 minutes with the second panel. Very interesting. Thank you.